As mentees become leaders, our dream is for them to become mentors to others. For this session, we came up with a series. We called it Career and Life Journeys of Mentors, wherein our mentors in the mentoring clubs are sharing their stories. For this afternoon, we are featuring Carol Evanoff, and she will talk about mentoring for leaders. I will turn over the floor to Hong now.
Thank you, Liso. I have the privilege of introducing Carolyn Evanoff, and she's been a mentor for a very long time. The title for today is Mentoring for Leaders, but also, actually, for to be correct, also mentoring leaders themselves. What we like to do in this series is to have Carol describe major career and life experiences and decisions that she had so we can understand her better and then understand how she made her career decisions and career moves. I have you have a few words to introduce yourself. Welcome, Carol.
I've been mentoring since I was 23. I started working at Raytheon when I was 17. I started working at Lockheed when I was 19. Became a manager when I was 23. Had 26 different jobs at varying levels of the organization and did my last 16 years at the Strategic Weapons Facility Pacific as the resident director for Lockheed Martin with 430 employees. So I've mentored, besides my employees, which have been about 3,000 different people, I also mentored 1,000 leaders and helped leaders to get higher in the organization. Lots of mentoring experience.
Since you started so very early on, looking back into your early childhood, anything that predetermined you for leadership later on in life?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things in my childhood. I actually grew up as a farm worker, picking crops. They moved to the Willamette Valley where I met my mother, and so we grew up working in the fields. It certainly made me understand what it takes to earn a dollar, and every job I've had has been easier than that one. I really enjoyed working in air conditioning and not in the mud. It, I think, gave me the spirit of never giving up and never stopping until I could get where I wanted to go and do the things I wanted to do. I think is part of the thing that made me who I am. I left home when I was 16, was working at the police station at the time. I graduated from high school at 16. Moved away. I took my younger sister and my cousin. Her mother dropped her off when she was 3 days old and then took off and left her behind. And so I raised her entire life, and she has now 2 kids, and those 2 kids have 3 more kids. So I have 3 great granddaughters. So I also know what it's like to try to balance work-life balance and working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and trying to go to school and manage your family at the same time. So it's a real challenging environment.
When did leadership first appear into your career after that start?
Yeah, when I hired in at Lockheed Martin, I was in the microelectronics lab. It was a new field at the time. That was back in 1975 when microelectronics was first emerging and integrated circuits were first emerging. And having the experience at Raytheon for a couple of years helped me to get a job at Lockheed working in the microelectronics lab. My first leadership position was I was there for probably a month, and they made me the lead on night shift. I ran the night shift for the microelectronics lab. After that, I did production control, and when I was 23, I became the supervisor of the electronic cable department and had 105 employees. I also was the youngest manager in the Lockheed Corporation at the time. I was one of the very few women that was in that field. At that time, there was only 0.2% of the managers were women. So we weren't even 1%. And there was 30,000 employees, and we were 50% of the population. What was fortunate for me was I had a mentor when I first hired in microelectronics. And she said, Carol, you need to go to college. And I said, oh, I hate school. I don't want to go to college. She goes, Carol, you really do need to go to college. So I signed up and started going to college. 11 years later, because I had to fit my classes in when I wasn't working. And so it took 11 years to get my degree. And that was an accomplishment itself as well. In my first job, because my mentor had helped me so much to get the supervisor job, get the leader job, I said, I need to do the same thing for my employees. And so I met with all 105 of my employees and looked at what their backgrounds were, and then looked to see what kind of jobs at Lockheed might be something they could attain. I looked in the quality assurance organization, and there was some entry-level inspector positions, which were higher paid than the cable builders. They needed some schooling, so I went to the local community college and asked if they could put on some classes in those disciplines. And so some of my employees took the classes and became inspectors. Some of my employees took other classes and became warehouse logistics people. And some of them also went into other manufacturing positions and test technicians. And so the first year I was a leader at 23, I lost 100 people in my first year to promotions. It was all promotions. So I had to replace those people. So I had to come up with a really good training plan to bring people in and get them trained and get them building cables as fast as I can. And of course, then you continue to develop those people, and those people leave. I've done that my entire career, from job to job to job, tried to develop all my employees and do everything I can to get them to the next level.
I have this question about demanding performance. I mean, in any leadership role, I mean, people under you have got to perform, the team has got to perform, the group has got to perform. You have to show that. So my question is this: can you demand performance?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that female leaders especially, they take a look at. They say, well, look, if I'm really nice to my employees, then they're not going to take me as seriously, or I can't really demand performance out of them. What I found was, by being interested in my employees, by mentoring them, by caring about them, and demanding performance at the same time, it was a really good combination. And I found that some of my folks, almost most of my folks, probably were outperforming their peers at other remote facilities that were doing the same work. I found that by being interested in them individually and caring about them individually, expecting the best performance for two reasons. One, so that they could continue to grow and learn and get promotions and make more money for their families. What I had found is that I had very high performing teams throughout my whole career. And it, of course, made me more successful because I had high performing teams. I typically had waiting lists of people who wanted to transfer to my organization. When I'd say, well, why do you want to transfer here? They say, because I know you'll develop me. It's important to come out as a leader who wants to develop their people and wants to talk to them and wants to find what their path is. And in some cases, there were people that worked for me that ended up leaving Lockheed and going and doing other work because that's where their passion was, becoming nurses, police officers, lawyers.
We now hear about Google analyzing all their teams and see which teams perform, and those that perform happen to have solid psychological safety in their teams. So sort of everybody hear those things as new things discovered with a lot of science. How early have you noticed those things yourself in the way you led?
I noticed it for myself because my boss mentored me and cared about me. And so I immediately did the same behavior, because we tend to emulate those people that we admire and look up to. For me, it was when I was 19, 20 years old. I've done it ever since, and I've seen the rewards. I've mentored a lot of Lockheed leaders and helped them to develop stronger teams. And I'm still mentoring Lockheed leaders and Northrop Grumman leaders and Google leaders and leaders in Japan and leaders all over the place. So it's fun and it's exciting, and I like to be able to share the experience that helps them learn to be the best leader they can be.
The quality of being coachable, what does it mean and how important is that?
When I talk about being coachable, it's mostly about, are you willing to be open and listen and try new things in your career and in your leadership style? You have to listen to the people that are telling you positive things, but you also have to listen to the people that tell you negative things so that you can see both sides of yourself and both sides of your leadership. And maybe not things that are true, but things that might be the perception. It's really key to be coachable and mostly be able to listen to what people want to tell you and the feedback they want to give you, your boss's feedback, your boss's feedback, your mentor's feedback. Hopefully you'll have 2 or 3 different mentors, be able to take that coaching and listen, but also temper that with what is your passion and where are you going. And in one case for me, I was in Sunnyvale at a meeting and my boss pulled me into his office. He was vice president of the Fleet Ballistic Missile Program. And he said to me, Carol, if you don't stop caring about your employees, you're never going to get promoted. He said, but I know you're probably not going to listen to that. You're probably going to still be good to your employees. You have to take the feedback, but you also have to know yourself and know what needs to change in yourself and what shouldn't be changed in yourself.
What separates leaders from non-leaders?
Just from my experience, some people are leaders and they can't help themselves but to be a leader. When things are going on and they're trying to get things done, they tend to organize everybody and get everybody going in the right direction. So the traits to being a leader, I think, emerge in you. If you listen to it and you enjoy it, then you should continue doing it. If you don't enjoy leadership, because not everybody likes the interpersonal skills part of it, they don't like having to give negative feedback. They don't like to have to explain why the raise is not bigger. So some people would rather stay in the technical fields and move up in the technical fields, which is totally great. If you want to be a leader, that's great too, but it is very demanding and it takes a lot of guts and it takes a lot of being very honest with yourself and with your employees and your bosses and trying to always do the right things.
Along with that, the whole dimension of tough love. I think that's basically what I'm hearing from what you just said.
In my career, I've actually fired 38 people. If you talk to most Lockheed leaders, they've maybe fired 1 in their career. Right. So I think it's very important as a leader that you do the right things and do the hard things. And that's not easy.
Can you comment on that? The work-life balance being having to face tough demands at work, tough demand at home.
It's very difficult. And it was even worse in the 70s and early 80s, getting leadership to understand family and trying to balance work and family. I was mentoring a group of leaders, advanced leaders that were going through advanced leadership training. And I decided it might be interesting to do a survey and find out a bunch of different questions. But one of the questions I had them ask, and we interviewed all of the vice presidents at Lockheed Martin in Sunnyvale, and asked them the question, did they have to sacrifice family in order to get the job they were in today? And 100% of them said yes. That was the environment that we all were in then. The hard part is when everything's going good and you've got babysitting and you've got school and you've got all of those things lined up, that's great. But when your teenager plays hooky and so now the school's called you and said, she's not there, and you're at work, you have to say, okay, I need to leave work and go find out where she is. It's really hard because being a parent and raising children, it becomes a day-by-day decision-making process based on what's happening that day. COVID is a good example. Homeschooling, sending your kids to school in masks because you don't want them to get COVID. My great-granddaughter just got COVID last week. She was in the hospital. They had to go through respiratory therapy. She's finally starting to mend and she's getting better. And so it kind of scared you to death. But her mom, who couldn't afford to take time off, had to take time off. Work-life balance is a very difficult thing that has to be balanced day by day and sometimes hour by hour. So it's not easy. It helps, I think, if you can talk to other parents that are working in the same field that you're in because they understand. You develop a team relationship among your peers and among your team that works for you so that if you do have to leave, they can cover for you. Don't make yourself so integral to the process that nothing happens when you're not there. You got to train your team to perform when you're there or you're not there. And then that alone can help allow you to make choices of, okay, my kid's sick today, I got to stay home. But I think a lot of it is working with your team, working with your peers, and covering for each other and making sure everybody's got work-life balance. I had a gentleman that was working for me. I had just transferred to a new job, division manager of a program, and he was my manufacturing engineering manager. I kept seeing him sneak out the back door. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking at my watch. His workday was done, so why is he sneaking? Well, it's the old adage of, everybody should stay there for 12 hours, 7 days a week. And so I called him into my office and said, you're leaving at the right time of the day. Why is it you feel like you have to sneak? And he says, well, I'm coaching my son's Little League baseball team, and I feel bad if people see me leaving that they don't think I'm dedicated. And that's the point, is you got to have those conversations. That was back in the 1980s. And I said to him, well, so long as you're working for me, you don't need to sneak out the back door. I totally support you being a coach for your son's team, and I think that's fantastic. He didn't have to sneak out the back door anymore. And I think that's one of the things that we can do for our peers. That's one of the things we can do for our employees and for each other, is to recognize that there is a balance. And what I really love is the new generations that's coming into work now that are saying, family is more important than my job. And that's going to change the culture of our entire country, is the whole new idea that people are going to quit their jobs and go do something else if it doesn't fit for their family and for their life. Got the biggest groups of people quitting that they've ever had. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the surveys and some of the articles and news articles that are coming out about how many people are quitting their jobs. But that's going to be a cultural revolution, great resignation. Yeah. As a leader, it really is important that you let your people know that they should be taking their vacation. I had senior managers that were working for me, and it came to my attention that they were all cashing out their vacation at the end of every year because they just didn't have time to take time off. So I called them into my office on January and said, okay, I need the plan. You tell me when you're taking your 4 weeks vacation. I want to know. And if you don't take 4 weeks vacation, I'm going to fire you. And if you have trouble figuring out what to do on vacation, I will call your spouses. Absolutely. I was talking to one of my managers, and he goes, well, what if I took like a day at a time? I said, well, that would be great. He says, you mean like I could take a day off and go watch the Mariners play baseball with my wife like I did back when we were dating? I go, yeah, that would be great. I'm sure she would love it. He said he took her to the game, and she looked around and she started crying because it was so important. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I see, is that most leaders, when they get promoted, especially when they first get promoted, they don't think about getting a mentor because, well, they've achieved the goal that they had, which was to become a leader. And so now they just got to hunker down and be a leader. And then they don't go out and solicit that next level of mentorship in order to be a good leader, learning from other mentors and also working then for the next level. You want to become a lead man, group leader, supervisor, manager, senior manager, division manager, director. I mean, there's a lot of levels. What I see a lot is leaders not having mentors. And so it's really important. In my second book that I wrote, that was one of the first things I said in the book was, you need to get a mentor. Yeah, I think no matter what you achieve, no matter how great you become, no matter how rich you are, you always need a mentor. Typically, we tend to start with a technical mentor, become a technical expert. Because you're a technical expert, they make you a leader, and you may or may not be a leader. If you do find out you are a leader and you continue to go, then you need someone to mentor you both technically and mentor you in leadership skills, which means you might have to have more than one mentor. Every level you go to, there's another set of things you need to learn: executive presence and presentations and interpersonal skills, negotiating skills. There's just this huge amount of learning that's always in front of you. You have a choice. You can go and take that as a trial and error, or you can ask somebody for the map. If I can get the map, I'm good. If I can get the manual, I can take anything apart and put it back together. If I can get the manual of how to help people, then I can help people. And so getting a mentor is critical. And usually it's more than one mentor, because as you grow and you advance, now you're having to get mentored in other things besides technical and even some of the basic leadership skills and understanding stocks and bonds and stock options and just, I mean, there's always more. There's always more. And you should never stop learning. Even if you decide that you love your job and you don't want to go move and go anywhere else, it doesn't mean you can't expand the job you have. It doesn't mean that you can't be better at what you're doing. Don't ever stop learning.
Do you still have a mentor now yourself?
Yes. I have a mentor who is a ghostwriter that helps me with my writing skills and how to conceptualize to do the books that I wrote and books that I may write in the future. I have mentors at my current job that are teaching me how to be what we call a gray bear, meaning someone who's got lots and lots of experience and needs to be able to help the community that they're in learn all the things that were learned in the past so that you're not having to repeat the mistakes. I have a mentor that teaches me how to maintain my tractor because I have a 14-acre forest that I'm trying to maintain and grow the trees. And so there's always more things to learn and people that can teach you and mentor you. I'm trying to, help as many people as I can. I'm so jazzed. You can't even imagine with the classes they're going to have at Lockheed to teach people at Lockheed how to develop their career and how to get mentors and how to do all the blocking and tackling you need to do to be successful. And so I'm really looking forward to that year-long series, one class a month.
Thanks so much, Carol. It's been a privilege talking to you and getting to interview you.